This is From Courtroom to Carline, the podcast where we discuss life as a lawyer and a parent.
I'm Rick.
And I'm Jenna.
Your host and partners both in the courtroom and in parenting.
Join us as we navigate the fascinating worlds of life as a parent and a lawyer. Get ready for a roller coaster ride where law meets love and where the gavel meets the car line.
Welcome to another episode from Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. Today on the show, we've got Justin Petredis. He's a criminal defense attorney in Tampa, Florida. He's been practicing for about 20 years now. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you are also board certified trial attorney. Can you tell our listeners what that means?
So that is a process that every area has their own board certification, and specifically for criminal trial, you have to have done, to start out with 25 jury trials, and then you fill out a very lengthy questionnaire, and they look into your background. They check your last 5 trials. Who was the judge? Who was the opposing counsel? They call them. They say, what do you think? Then they ask that person to give them names, and they ask those people. And you take a test that was not as bad as the bar, but it was not fun. And then hopefully you pass the test.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Now, you have your own firm, right?
That's correct. I've been a solo practitioner for 12 years now.
Okay. And what sort of cases do you typically handle?
I am also a part-time employee, regional counsel, which is the state of Florida. It's kind of like the secondary public defender's office, I would say, for the layperson. And I do first-degree capital homicides for them. And then on my own, I do really any criminal defense that comes in the door, or I do the occasional injunction.
And how long have you been on your own for?
I went out, I think it was June of 2012.
So tell us, what made you take the leap to opening your own firm?
So I'd been at the prosecutor's office in Dade City for about almost 8 years, and a friend of mine, Dustin Anderson, he's now a judge up in Newport Richey, was at regional counsel full-time at that point, and they needed some part-time attorneys, and he said, look, I'd like you to come, but obviously you can't be a prosecutor and do this, so you'd have to go out on your own. It's a part-time job, but it's guaranteed income, and you'll have X amount of cases. And so I talked it over with my wife. We thought it was a good time to make the leap, and I did.
What was the biggest struggle for you going out on your own?
Just the nervousness of getting cases, because even though I had some guaranteed income from regional counsel, it wasn't enough. It was, if that's all I got, it would have been a major pay cut from even the state attorney's office. So it was getting cases in the door.
I think that, we have the same concerns being a newer law firm. It's always that first of the month. You have that, reset, and are you going to get the cases that you need to, continue to run your firm?
Yep.
And also I think the marketing aspect too is very new and different than when you come from an office that you don't need to market yourself.
Exactly.
What type of marketing have you done or platforms that you've used?
So I've only done 2, and I don't do either anymore. I started out, I mailed the letters to people that had just been arrested, and I stopped that because while it was low cost, it was time intensive.
Yes.
And the return on investment, just you'd send 100 of those out, and maybe you'd get one that you actually were able to sign up.
Yes.
Because some people just call for free legal advice, and I understand.
Yep.
And then for a while, there was terminals, and there still may be terminals in the Pasco County Jail that inmates could email people, and they were allowing only 6 attorneys to advertise on those. So I was advertising in the jail. That was expensive, but I was getting a really good return on investment because that was my clientele, and they could email me for free. And so, but then all of a sudden they stopped doing it.
Well, that's still super creative, though, to find something that, not everyone can participate in, because obviously there's just a lot of attorneys here in Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco County. So to find those ways that you can market yourself and be different is definitely important to, keep a successful firm. So you said you're not marketing anymore. How are you getting most of your cases?
Really just word of mouth.
That's awesome. We hope to get to that point too.
So doing the work at the regional counsel's office, you get a lot of murder cases, don't you?
Yes. I'll have anywhere from 1 to 4 pending at a time, usually maybe 5.
And, describe some of the challenges taking on such a big case like that. You've been doing this for 20 years now, but, a murder case is still very challenging, and each one is different. So How do you handle those things?
It's a lot different because I always, we joke around. I wouldn't do this, but we joke that you could give me a possession of cocaine file in the morning and I could do a jury trial in the afternoon. But in a homicide case, it's not just can you do it, it's just you have to prepare to do every step and really do it so that later when they're looking at what you've done on the appellate process, they can say, you did what you were supposed to do. So you're not going to court that much. It's just if you, as you would if you had like say 10 possession of cocaine cases. But you're doing a lot of depots, you're reading a lot of case files, you're going through a lot of things, you're talking to experts. It's just preparing for the trial and preparing now, number one, you're prepared, and then it will look okay later if someone looks at it and say that you've done a good job, you've done a good enough job to represent this client. If unfortunately it goes the way a lot of those murders go, which is a conviction.
And I feel like most people just see what happens in the courtroom when it comes to these high profile cases, these murder cases, but they don't see the work and the time and the energy and all the hours that are put in leading up to that. And that's really, the challenging part where you've got to be disciplined to know that, hey, this isn't something that I could prepare for in an afternoon. This is something that's going to take weeks and months and even years to prepare for. So just, understanding that and being disciplined to do that is really a quality that any good criminal defense attorney would have. So kind of going back to your personal story, you're originally from up north, Cleveland, Ohio, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What was it like adjusting from moving from the north to down here to Florida?
I had a little buffer because I went to law school in New Orleans. That's where I met my wife, and that's why I'm here, because I took my wife to Cleveland for the first time in the winter, which was a terrible idea, because then she would never move there. And so New Orleans isn't as hot as Tampa, but it gets pretty hot in the summer. So it was a nice little 3-year buffer because it's a little more, I would say 3 seasons there instead of 4, but here it's 1 season. So
I'm from up north too. I'm from Maine. So Rick had also gotten to experience winter up in Maine. We would go up there for Christmas, but we have decided that it is much nicer down here and we'd rather deal with the hot summers. You have a child.
yes.
How has that been in terms of, having your practice and still trying cases?
It's been okay. My wife's been great. We have some help. My mother-in-law is great. We do everything we can, but I haven't had any issues quite yet. Well, I guess that's not true because I just had a homicide trial the first week of June. I forgot about this already. And my wife tells me the week before, and she'd probably told me in her defense, but I forgot. She said, "You're still okay with me going away next week?" And I said, "I will be in trial every day next week until, who knows what hour." So that week was tough because we had to get my mother-in-law and our nanny stay a little late, and then I'd come home and I'd hopefully see him before he went to bed. Then I'd have to work, so that was rough. But other than that, we've been able to kind of move the pieces around and make it work okay.
We've kind of dealt with the same thing. Obviously, when I was at the public defender's office and Rick had, was running the law firm, we could switch. If I was in trial, he was on dad duty. We're finding now, because we're both in the firm, if we have a trial, we obviously both want to be present, and it just takes a little bit extra planning to make sure that you have childcare in place and that everything, on the calendar is set. So that's probably been one of our challenges, but, so it happens and we just deal with it.
And my wife is a managing partner of a pretty big law firm downtown.
Okay, yeah.
So she's in the office a lot. So
yeah.
It's one of the good things being your own boss is I can work from home a lot. That when I'm not in court or not having depots, I can be at home, whereas she has to be in the office a lot.
Absolutely.
And I remember when I started the law practice in 2018, that was one of the biggest reasons why I did that is because I could be my own boss. It was at a time when we only had one child, but we were expecting a second. Jenna was still working in the public defender's office, having a large caseload. So, being your own boss, knowing that your partner can't be your own boss is really was a driving factor for me in opening the law practice. So, I completely understand, the position that you're in, and, it's good to, have that team aspect, the fact that you're both attorneys, you can relate to, certain legal topics and, talk about things, when you get home. So, so Justin, talking about, running your own law practice and also, being there for your wife and your child, what have been some of the things that helps you make sure that you prioritize your family and not get so bogged down with, work and trying cases? What are some of the strategies, or what are some of the things that you do to kind of make sure your priorities are still there with your family?
Well, I mean, I work from home a lot, so that helps because I'm able to, be there for anything if I'm needed. And I don't know if I have a strategy. Well, I guess I do because sometimes I give out my cell phone number to my clients, which I don't mind, and they like to text, which I don't mind, except some of them are I'm just gonna say they're needy. And I used to, I'll text them back at 8 o'clock at night, but I've kind of recently just had to start saying, there's got to be a limit at some point, unless they text me it's an emergency.
Yes.
I just have to set a limit. It's after 6 o'clock. I will pick up this text chain tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And just, make myself hard and fast rules because, it's family time now.
No, absolutely. And we try to do the same thing. Obviously, we are able to talk about cases when we're at home together, but there is that time where you need to just shut off from work and give yourself the time that you need to kind of regroup and just reset for the day. I'm a big reader. Rick is more into the podcasts. Would you say you are more of a podcast guy or a reader?
Oh, unfortunately, more of a podcast guy.
What are some podcasts that you're into or that you've listened to that have really stuck out to you, that you've enjoyed listening to?
So I don't listen to any podcasts about legal stuff.
Okay, yep.
I only listen to podcasts about Ohio State football, Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Cavs, and I like this one podcast. It's called How Did This Get Made? It's just about dumb movies, and a couple actors in Hollywood talk about how silly they are. And that's to kind of like get me away from everything.
So Rick is a huge FSU fan, football,
Okay.
sports just in general. And I am always just so amazed at the amount of sports knowledge he has. He would listen to sports talk radio, and that was just his thing. But just a different perspective than the law.
Yes.
Well, growing up when we did, we grew up with SportsCenter, watching SportsCenter to, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, waiting for the team that you were rooting for to, have their highlights shown. We couldn't go on to ESPN.com or YouTube and just click on our team's highlights. I grew up, staying up late watching sports until my team was finally shown on TV. So I think that's part of the reason why, I got all the sports knowledge that I did. Obviously Ohio State, they're really big into football up there. They've got a great team. I'm still a little bit sour about last season not getting into the playoff, but, I'll leave that for another episode.
Add me back to that one.
You mentioned that, doing, listening to the sports, listening to non-legal things on podcasts. And, I can definitely relate to that because I need that time to just have my mind relax, calm down, not worry about, what's on the calendar, not worry about who's in court next. I need that time to just not have my mind essentially work as hard. And, I feel like that can kind of be re-energizing for me. If I get that time, it's usually before bed, whether it's a TV show, when we're able to watch TV and it's not, children's cartoons or something like that, but just having that time to let your mind relax and listen to something that's purely entertainment purposes. So, I appreciate the fact that you do that, and it probably helps your mental health doing this line of work.
No, I did just get a book about the law.
Okay.
About a different way to do criminal defense that this guy came up with a method called the rule out method. But I bought it 3 weeks ago and I have not opened it.
At least you bought it. That's always the first step. I usually will buy a bunch of books at one time, and then when I get to it, because obviously running a firm, raising children, it's hard to sometimes find that time.
Exactly.
So, going back to doing criminal defense, have there been any memorable cases that you've done that have stuck with you that, you might be willing or able to share with our viewers?
I guess the most memorable case I did was a few years ago. It was on the news. It was the shark case in Tampa, where 4 individuals shot the shark with a handgun and then drugged the shark behind a boat. That may or may not have been alive. Our position was it was dead, but because you couldn't tell, they charged them all with animal cruelty, and it made the national news. Every time I went to court, there'd be people wearing red shirts, kind of like PETA, but not really. I don't know. But they were protesting this, And so it was a lot. The news would be there all the time. I gave them a number of interviews. I had someone call and threaten my life
Wow.
multiple times, and we made it. I don't want to say a joke because it's bad, but like we talked about earlier, I've done so many homicide cases.
Yes.
I've never received one threat from a homicide case. And this shark case, I had to call the police because this guy wouldn't stop calling and threatening my life. Now, he appeared drunk to me on the phone. I didn't think it was real, but after about 20 calls, I was like, I should probably do something. So yes, that was a very interesting case. We lived with that for about a year. It took a while.
So, that brings up a good topic in terms of a publicity case or dealing with the media. What was your approach to that case and dealing with the media?
There was 3 attorneys on the case at the time, and our approach was we wanted to talk to the media because if you just watched the video, it was so bad. It looked so awful. They were laughing. The shark, again, we believed it to be dead, but if it was alive, it was just reprehensible behavior. However, we wanted to present our point out because he kind of wanted to talk to the prospective jury in that case because we needed to get our side out before they sat down, because if they just saw that video, I mean, they would probably try to convict the attorneys too. They've been so mad. So that was our philosophy, is to do as many interviews as they'd allow us to do and just put what our facts were that we thought needed to get out there.
Did you feel that you were able to effectively communicate your point to the media to let them know, there is another, I don't want to necessarily say side, but there is, background information that's pertinent to your defense and your representation of these individuals?
Yes, I thought we were able to get that out very quickly. We only had a few points. We'd hit them every time while trying to make our clients seem like they regretted their decision, which I think they did. So yes, I think we were able to do that. And that also helped later with the prosecutor's office, I think, because we were able to get a pretty good resolution on the case.
How did you learn to address media cases? Did you have like a mentor, or was it just something that you figured out, as media approached you on these cases that you were handling?
Did not have a mentor on that. I just kind of figured it out. I'm someone that sometimes I maybe talk too much. So I had to learn to get exactly what I want to say out and nothing else, because a long interview, when we're not allowed to talk to the media or I'm not allowed to talk to the media on a regional counsel case without permission, they don't like, which I understand.
Yeah.
So it's just my other cases, because I will get calls from the media on those cases, and the regional counsel doesn't like us to talk about those cases. But yeah, I just learned over time, starting as a prosecutor, which I wouldn't be able to, but just media would come and I still have to say no. But I think what would I have said in that scenario?
I think when, dealing with people in general, dealing with judges, dealing with, opposing counsel, don't be afraid of the awkward silence. Don't be afraid of the awkward pause. It may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but, looking back in hindsight, you're going to be thankful that you did, have that awkward pause, as opposed to saying something that maybe you shouldn't have said, which could later turn around and bite you in the butt. So, that's one of the things that I've always, remembered. Hey, it's okay for both, just standing there in an awkward silence, because that's what needs to happen, or else, they're going to want me to say something. I mean, that's what, media tries to do. They try to get you to say more and more and more, and eventually they get their sound bite and they use that, and you regret saying it. So, I think, just like you said, making your points, leaving it at that, and not giving them anything else that they can try to twist, is a good strategy. So I'm glad that it worked out.
And that's what I would do, is fill awkward silences at first, because I don't like awkward silences. That's also good advice to defendants when they testify.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do not fill awkward silences.
What would be one piece of advice that you would give our listeners, whether it's a public defender, a state attorney, or, someone that's working at a civil firm that wants to make that jump to open their own firm? What would you tell them?
Well, I think you need support from someone is the best way to do it. I guess I shouldn't say you need it, but it's very helpful to not have that pressure month 1, month 2, that, oh my God, no one hired me this month, or only one person hired me. That's the best. And maybe to build yourself up like a little, you can go a few months without having to be so nervous, because that's at the beginning. If you're not advertising, or even if you are advertising, they're not going to beat down your door on day one. It's just not how it works. You're new to the game, whatever area of law you're in. So that would be my best. And it's good to maybe get a mentor and someone to can explain how they did it. Exactly. So you can do what they did, or at least partially what they did, to understand how they built up their practice.
No, I think that's, great to not reinvent the wheel and, figure out from somebody else that's already made those mistakes or tried things that, didn't work for them that you can then learn from. We're trying to navigate our way and, talk to other attorneys. Right now we're trying to hopefully buy an office building. So one of the attorneys that we know has given us some helpful information about an SBA loan. So it's just those little things that you can learn from other attorneys that can help you in your practice.
An attorney did tell me, hey, you could send out these letters to people that just been arrested. It's very cheap, but it'll take a lot of your time. But you're going to have a lot of time when you no one's going to hire you. And it was very helpful because I was able to get some business in the door through that. Obviously, like I said, I stopped doing that, but at the beginning, it was a good idea.
Yes, and great point too. Even if the first couple of months or few months are difficult, just keep going. Obviously, you've been on your own for quite some time now. You've built a successful practice. So, the hard work, the perseverance definitely pays off.
I think so.
And just for our viewers, you mentioned the SBA loan. One of the things that we've recently learned is that if you're a business trying to purchase a property for your business, you're not necessarily forced to put down 20% as a down payment. You could put down 10% as a down payment. So that's something that I did not know until recently. And so that's been helpful. And again, learning the ins and outs of, it's called a 504 SBA loan has kind of helped us in looking at a building and given us that goal in the future. So Justin, thank you for coming on the podcast. For our viewers, where can they find you?
So my website is petredislaw.com, PETREDISLAW. And my email is justin@petredislaw.com.
Well, thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you guys. I had a pleasure.
And now for our next segment, what happened to Florida Man next?
All right, so on this, what happened to Florida Man, the headline is Florida Man caught with stolen utility pole strapped to car. This was out of Hillsborough County. This was November of 2020. So a 71-year-old guy was driving down the interstate, saw a utility pole on the side of the street, decided to strap the pole to the roof of his car, ended up getting pulled over by the Florida Highway Patrol, told the officer that he was going to scrap the pole for money. So he ended up pleading to the case on November 30th of 2021. He got an adjudication of guilt, so he was adjudicated guilty, 36 months probation, and they reserved on restitution for 45 days. Restitution is essentially when they say that, you owe for whatever it is you took. I never saw that the city or, county ever requested any restitution. He ended up violating probation in 2022, again in 2023, before Hillsborough finally just ended up terminating his probation and the case was over. Having that headline, what are your thoughts on this? Have you had a crazy case like this before?
Yes, in Pasco County, when I was a prosecutor, we had a lot of people trying to get the scrap metal. And when they changed the law, I know, a little bit to make it be able to punish a lot for that. And people were going to prison a lot for that in Pasco County. That's why I'm surprised he got so many chances. Like, he got probation to begin with, something that large. With the craziest one, I don't remember all the facts, but the gentleman was trying to steal from a live power line, and
wow,
he died.
So, one of the things that stuck out to me is this guy clearly didn't think he was doing anything wrong when he strapped this pole onto the roof of the car, because you're essentially begging to be pulled over. And for our viewers, just because you don't think you're committing a crime doesn't mean that you're not committing a crime. So, one of the jury instructions I will say, and to play devil's advocate, is that if you do something stealthily, like if you enter a residence stealthily, that could be, used as evidence or a presumption that you went in there with ill intent. Well, this was the exact opposite of that. So, as his defense attorney, my argument to the prosecutor would have been, hey, this guy didn't think he was committing a crime. He thought the pole was abandoned. So let's just, let him walk away with probation. And, fortunate for this guy, that's what happened.
So I think just, a note for our viewers, don't try to scrap a utility pole for cash. Thank you again for tuning in to From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast.